Hey, so I recently played Mass Effect 1 just the other day, and I just kind of wanted to talk a bit about it and voice my thoughts and opinions on the game. Um, I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would for a game that's as old as it is. I thought it was going to be far more dated and the gunplay was going to be much slower and more boring, but um, it kind of started that way, if I'm being honest. But then once I figured out that you needed to really go into your skill points and start paying attention to that with your whole squad and look at your different gun modifications, I realized that that was the main way to keep yourself updated with the enemies of the game. Otherwise, you're gonna fall behind way too easy. And I was feeling that way when I first started playing the game, but I realized the more that you like pay attention to your inventory management, the more fun and the more equipped you feel to deal with the problems the game throws at you, which is actually a really interesting way because usually I hate doing all sorts of fucking inventory management when I'm playing games like these. But I once I really like started to understand it, I found myself enjoying it, feeling like as Shepard I was getting more prepared for the missions I was going to go on, which really gave me like a more sense of immersion in the game. Overall, I think the world of the game lends itself pretty well to becoming immersed in. It's not too wild or fantastical, though the overall world is far more advanced than the world we're used to. It is like you can see the clear steps that humanity might have taken to get to where they are in Mass Effect, and I you can really tell that because it's all because of how much love and care the developers put into this world. Like there's tons, like hundreds of different codex entries that you can read up on, giving you the lore and the history of this entire world. I'm sure you could spend dozens of hours reading through all this history and lore just to get a small grasp on what the world is like. And that's really impressive to me, honestly. That even though it was the first game in the series, it was just a it was just somebody taking a chance on the series, really. The developers still decided to put all this love and care into the world that they didn't even know if it was going to succeed, and I'm happy to see that it did. You can gather all these different codex entries from just different missions and going to different worlds around throughout the game. It's just like if you see any sort of computer or data pad, you can often interact with it, and once you hack in, you get a bit of information on the planet you're on or where the data pad came from or some history behind the overall story. It's a really impressive way to immerse your players even more. It's like on top of feeling like you're equipping yourself for the battle you're going into, the game keeps you immersed as you get onto these planets, showing you like, hey, you read this data pad like Shepard would. Now here's the information Shepard would learn. And then the game later will like congratulate you if it was part of a mission. It'll be like, hey, great work. Here's the because of the information you got. Here's the success that we have. Um, But on top of that, you really don't need to read all the codex entries if that's not something that you want to do, because it is a lot to look at. You could kind of just completely skip over them, and the world will still be just as enjoyable to you because the gameplay is still fun and interactive, and the world feels fresh and inviting. It doesn't feel like it needs to rip off another sci-fi universe like Star Wars or Star Trek. It doesn't need the use of um, phasar beams or teleportation beams or lightsabers. It has its own uniqueness to it and its own weapons and cultures and aliens, transportation. The whole universe is all custom and self-made for itself. It doesn't feel like it needs to steal. It doesn't impoach on other things. It's truly an impressive task that the developers created an entirely new sci-fi universe in a world where ideas that are new are hard to come by and most are very repetitive. Different planets that you could travel to are all really interesting and unique in their own ways. Some of them start to feel very similar. There's a couple that kind of kind of look a lot like another one, or the terrain is very similar, and a lot of these planets are more difficult to traverse than you'd really expect. But the game giving you this all-terrain vehicle that you can just kind of jump and fly over and just kind of boost your way around is a good way to kind of mitigate that challenge. Though it can still sometimes be frustrating when your car flips over or gets stuck in a hole or something. But for the most part, the fact that you can drive around between like these mountainous regions and deserts and low gravity areas really makes the games and the planets each feel unique and worth traveling to. Also, on each of these planets, you find smaller missions like you can try and rescue some survivors of a crashed ship, or take down a cultist. There's all sorts of different options and abilities and different things that you can come across on all these smaller missions and planets that make them worth traveling to. And the overworld map is smooth and fast enough that it doesn't feel like too much of a hassle to travel between each of these worlds. Now, the really impressive thing about each of these small missions is that the the game takes record of what you've accomplished and will later bring it back up through other side characters or other companions, other missions later on. It'll all come back in a later form. The really crazy thing about that is that it's kind of the first game to really do something like that, and it keeps it going. Everything that you do in Mass Effect 1, well, maybe not everything, but most of what you do in Mass Effect 1, the bigger choices, even the smaller side missions, will come back up in Mass Effect 2 through different news channels and emails, and later companions will talk about it. It all comes back around full circle, and the game is, it feels really good to know that your actions and your choices mean something. Even if the game is going to bring you the same overall ending as anyone else, the fact that what you do as Shepard matters in the here and now while you're playing the game, that really makes your choices feel far more impactful and makes the game worth playing. It feels good. I just started playing Mass Effect 2 the other day, but instantly I felt that same love for the world as I felt in Mass Effect 1, and it was clear that the developers of Mass Effect 2 recognized how important the characters' choices felt and were in Mass Effect 1, and wanted to keep that feeling continuing into the sequel. And I think that's really impressive for the developers to have that sense of clarity and understand that it was worth putting in all the effort to make your save follow over from one game to the sequel, even though there's major upgrades in between. It's also really nice that the sequel and this one both have a loving connection with the companions. They really feel like interesting people. They all have deep backstories, side missions you can go on, and every choice you make with them feels like it impacts how they feel about you, and maybe it changes a little bit how they feel about the overall world. Though some of the companions are a little bit more interesting than others, and some of them are funnier and just more useful than others. I feel like the Normandy kind of needs all of them to feel like a true sci-fi crew. You know what I mean? Anyways, overall, I really enjoyed my time with the game. Clearly, I put around 24 hours in, and I did most of the side quests. I might have missed a couple, but it was a great time. The gameplay felt a little bit slow and stuttery at the beginning, but the more I played, the more I got used to it, the more I enjoyed it, and the more I just kind of fell into that time period. You know, that early 2000s. Like, wow, this is a major upgrade from what they had before, and it still stands the test of time to today. If you're looking for something new to play, I definitely recommend this. Great game overall. The Legendary Edition, collecting all three games, is a great deal. $20 a game, all re-enhanced and remastered. Sometimes the upgraded graphics do look a little bit funky on the older rigs and models, but overall it is a massive upgrade and a big leap. It's a great time. Seriously, I would recommend it if you're thinking about something to buy. Probably like a 8.5 out of 10, or maybe something like that.